NATO may be forced to defend one member against another, over Greenland. September 2025's Arctic drills weren't just training. They foreshadowed a European plan to block a US intervention. And by 2026, Trump's rhetoric shifted from buying to framing Greenland as a hemispheric security issue. In this video, we uncover the European shield, patrol ships, recon aircraft, rotating French troops, Arctic surveillance, and the Danish law that orders resistance to any invasion. Watch to see how the alliance's biggest crisis in 75 years could unfold on ice. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. The cold water off Greenland wasn't quiet. Gun crews on European frigates ran live fire strings near fjord mouths, while boarding teams climbed onto ice-hardened hulls with ropes and spike crampons. On the shoreline, special forces rehearsed room entries in prefab modules, then shifted to ship ladders coated in rime. None of it looked like a photo op. It looked like they expected traffic to test them and wanted that traffic to see they were ready. Denmark called allies to the Arctic and they showed up. French, German, Swedish, and Norwegian units spread along the west coast and the Disco Bay approaches. Coastal guns blasted patterns into sea boxes, marked by buoys and range boats. Maritime patrol aircraft traced looping orbits at medium altitude, sweeping radar cones across lanes that lead toward Kangerlussuaq and up toward Thule. Amphibious teams came ashore from rigid hull inflatables, moved inland on snowmobiles, then practiced link-ups with helicopter crews for quick pulls. Command posts kept the label Joint Readiness, but the choreography had sharper edges than a routine flag waver. Officials repeated the word training. On the ground, the rules read tighter. Greenlandic authorities noted patrols lingering on the same arcs day after day, like door locks set for one key only. Danish planners saw fire lines shifted to screen narrows and straights, and patrol loops that closed gaps into boxes. The tempo felt less like random drills and more like barrier tactics, the kind meant to channel unknowns into predictable lanes and buy time. The kit on scene backed that up. Frigates with towed arrays and ASW suites held the outer ring, hunting for quiet screws and odd hull forms. Long-range patrol planes ran surface search radar, catching steel at the horizon and aluminum hulls under cloud. Drones lifted for search and rescue on paper, yet their cameras and AIS sniffers stitched a wide-area maritime picture, day and night, through snowbands. On shore, portable sensors watched choke points, while teams carried cold-proof tablets feeding tracks back to fusion cells. Logistics told the real story. Fuel bladders sat behind berms near forward strips. Cold weather depots stocked de-icer, spare tracks, heaters, and medical kits in numbers that didn't match a short stay. Contracts for satellite bandwidth got inked for more than a week. You don't lease that kind of pipe for a parade. You lease it to keep feeds smooth when the air is crowded, and to push targeting quality updates without dropouts. Behind the scenes, coordination flowed through quiet channels. Informal tasking groups on Arctic surveillance spread workloads without bright press releases. Data teams fused ship tracks, ADSB blips, and runway throughput at Kangerlussuaq, with attention on turn times and tonnage. Thule's corridor numbers got the same treatment. The picture grew dense enough to flag a surge hours before it touched a pier. Out of that, the term took shape. European shield. Not a treaty, a method. Layered surveillance out front. Defined patrol boxes at the seams. Quick reaction companies on rotation. Gear staged for cold starts. The goal wasn't to fight a war from day one. It was to create friction for any uncoordinated move. Slow it, force it to talk, or back off. One day summed it up. A French platoon drilled ice mobility on a wind-scoured ridge, learning to pull sleds without snapping bindings. Over the bay, a German P-3 traced a patient oval while a gray contact, legal, lights on, emissions low, kept 6 knots along the shelf. No warnings, no flare drops, just a steady tail that said, "We see you, and the clock is ours." By the end, the grid was obvious. Patrol ships set the outer wall. Recon aircraft stitched the gaps. French troops rotated through cold stations, and Arctic-adapted sensors fed a live map. Not to start a fight, but to raise the price of a surprise. And that price only made sense once the politics lit the fuse. When a flippant real estate line hardened into a security doctrine no one could ignore. The sales pitch faded, and a new line took its place. Defend the hemisphere. That pivot didn't happen overnight. Early talk about buying Greenland sparked curiosity at home and an immediate wall abroad. Copenhagen called it absurd and offensive. Greenland's leaders said no, and the subject looked like it would die in a press scrum. It didn't. Through late 2024 and into 2026, the tone hardened. Greenland stopped being a quirky real estate target and became a stated necessity against Russia and China. The argument went like this: control the Arctic flank, secure North American approaches, keep rivals out. The subtext hinted that if negotiation failed, force could keep options open. That shift met firm resistance. Denmark and Greenland had already made their positions clear in earlier pushback, but the next steps added weight. A joint declaration in January 2026 from 8 European nations drew a thick line. It is up to Denmark and Greenland, and only them, to decide on matters concerning Denmark and Greenland. They grounded it in the UN Charter: sovereignty, territorial integrity, inviolability of borders, and sent it straight across the Atlantic. The message was plain: no external decision would substitute for consent from Nuuk and Copenhagen. The stakes explain why everyone leaned in. Thule's radar and space tracking network feed missile warning and satellite custody minute by minute. Lose access or see it contested, and early warning timelines shrink. The ground under the ice holds rare earths and other critical minerals that run through batteries, precision guidance, wind turbines, and chips. Control over those inputs is leverage in any tech race. Add the new Arctic shipping lanes that cut days off transit between the North Atlantic and the Pacific. Ships moving faster through colder water compress time for navies to react, shift patrols, and protect their own sea lines. Greenland sits on that pivot, a fixed point in a moving board. Danish law locks the posture. A directive rooted in 1952 and reaffirmed in January 2026 orders immediate resistance to any foreign incursion into Danish territory, including Greenland, regardless of who crosses the line. No pause for political clearance. Units are instructed to open fire if troops attempt to seize ground. That instruction carries legal force behind sovereignty and removes ambiguity at the moment of contact. It also creates a brutal paradox inside NATO. If Denmark resists and absorbs an attack from a fellow member, the collective defense clause sits on the table. Article 5 says an attack on one is an attack on all. Apply that to a clash with the alliance's largest military, and the logic twists on itself. The scenario many dismissed as unthinkable becomes a planning drill. Who responds, how fast, and against whom? Impossible paradox stopped being a slogan and turned into a briefing slide. European capitals started quiet contingency talk. Options circulated about sanctions that could be triggered inside the alliance. Tech export restrictions that bite supply chains, and leverage over base access that normally flows as routine courtesy. None of it reads like a plan to fight the United States. It reads like pressure tools to head off escalation, paired with the visible shield on the ice to slow any rapid move. Put together, the language shift from a purchase idea to a hemispheric security pitch runs headlong into Denmark's legal duty to shoot first at any incursion, and into an alliance clause that doesn't contemplate fratricide. NATO's shield starts to look like it could turn inward if someone forces the choice. With law codified and rhetoric sharpened, the outer wall has a job now. Raise the costs so high that any fast play turns politically toxic before it reaches the beach.